Good afternoon, everybody. It is March the 2nd, Wednesday, March the 2nd, 2022. I just, was in my shop today and then my gun area, and I was just doing some maintenance on this. My oldest son, I've mentioned him a couple of times being a shooting fan, and he's been playing around in the backyard with a couple of different air guns, and I thought he was old enough now to give this guy a go, and so I thought I would just kind of, I was cleaning it up for him, and I thought I would just show you guys basically what this old girl is. So this is it's hard to nail down exactly the year based on the serial numbers didn't come into play until 1957, if I recall. So this is basically a mid to late 1940s Benjamin multi-pump pneumatic model 317. So this guy is a pump action, okay, and single shot bolt, basically about 70 plus years oldish. These guys are really cool because they were made out of brass, entirely out of brass. Well, there's a couple of steel parts like the trigger guard and trigger and that sort of thing, but the compression tube here and the barrel are all brass. The receiver is all brass, and a lot of people don't know that, and they kind of think they're like chrome plated steel, but actually they were nickel plated brass. And then originally, I don't know if you can make that out, in between the barrel area there, and there's some a little bit there, but it had this like kind of like a brass black color, and it's very fragile, and it doesn't last, and only basic pristine examples have finish on them. And people are tempted a lot of times, and they will remove the nickel even because the nickel is very thin. So a lot of times where the carry point is, you'll see it's called like blooming brass underneath the nickel, because the nickel wears very fast. It's not a thick coating at all. I think they did that because whatever black coating that was the nickel was necessarily for the adhesion, I would imagine. So they kind of have this kind of chrome kind of look to them, but really it's just part of the finish degrading over time. You can see up near my front sight there, a little bit more of the finish remains, kind of the nook and crannies. And the barrel is soldered all the way to the compression tube, the sight's soldered on. And so really they're like a very durable, weatherproof air rifle. And I don't know if you can make that out, but it's I'll try to get the light here for you. It's stamped on the back. And the 317 was a little bit more rare because back in the day, 22 was a much more popular caliber, and so 177 was considered a little bit weaker on the American market anyway, and so, or North American market. So you don't see nearly as many 317s as you do 312s. And for me, for this type of air gun, I would prefer a 177 because it's one of the advantages, I'll back up, one of the advantages of a gun like this, a multi-stroke pneumatic, is you can tailor how much power you want based on how much air you put into it. So, you're outside in the backyard like my son shooting at cans, 2, 3, maybe 4 pumps. You're, going to punch some targets for fun up to 25 yards away, let's say, 5, 6 pumps. And then you're going to go out and do some small game hunting with it, full 8 pumps with it. And so you're able to tailor the pumps to your needs. 8 pumps is a bear. Like, I would not want to put 8 pumps in it and shoot targets with it. It's not a lot of fun. It's a lot of time to pump it. Your arm gets sore after a while, the whole 9 yards. And I think the average person who buys one of these, or bought one of these back in the day, used it for a hunting gun or, like I just described, a multi-purpose gun. I think for that it's tough to beat because unlike a spring air gun, which I touched on a little bit, and I think in one of my videos, spring air guns, especially the powerful ones, you can't just take it out of the box and start shooting it. There's a technique with shooting it because of how it recoils. Because there's a big coil spring and it fires, and there's a lot of going on, and all this time you're supposed to be stabilizing that pellet and the rifle. So shooting a spring air gun takes some skill, and every air gun likes to be held differently, and so spring air guns are not for everybody. Lots of people sell air guns, spring air guns, out of frustration because they think they don't shoot, and then an experienced shooter would pick it up and be able to dial it in, no problem. I've bought many that way. This comes in time. But anyway, this one doesn't need anything like that. No technique, I mean. You just pick it up and shoot it because it's a pneumatic. It doesn't recoil. It's bang on like a modern PCP. So with these brass barrels, there's no rust or anything to worry about in the bore, and so they essentially last forever. This gun has a one-piece valve inside. Sorry, not a one-piece valve. The mechanism is one piece. The valve is threaded inside the compression tube, so it's all kind of one contained unit, all hidden inside. And it's a real testament to this one being the age that it is, because these seals are original, which is ridiculous to think about. There's no plastic or anything on this gun. The pump cup's rubber, of course, and some seals are rubber, but actually some of the sealing items, the crush washers inside, are actually lead. And if taken care of, they last all these years. A pump gun like this should be stored with a pump or two in it, and that keeps the seals mated against their surfaces and doesn't give them a chance to dry or crack, and it keeps contamination out of the valve. So you should always store one of these with a couple of pumps in it. And then basically, if one of these is working properly, you put it away with a couple of pumps and you pick it up, a month later, there should still be a couple of pumps in there. Some guns leak down over time, like this one. Sometimes if you don't use it for a while, it will do that, and then you start using it again, it'll come back up. So using one of these is key. I don't use it like a super lot anymore, because to me, when I used to have a country house and some property, man, I shot air guns every day. Come home from work, sit outside on the porch for an hour and plink away. I can't do that in the city, so basically you can do a little bit in the backyard, but mostly they're range trips. And to me, sitting at the bench and pumping this is not a super awesome time. To me, it's more a fun gun for me. So I'm going to be taking it out for a range session one of these days, probably 25 yards. We'll start off at 10 though, because like I said, the pumping gets quite stout. I don't know, but I would say probably when you get close to 8, you're dealing with probably 40 pounds. Now they're pretty much the same. That was 3, 4, 5. That's typically my limit. You always want to caulk this before I caulked it already. You always want to caulk it before, because the hammer spring, and there's a hammer inside that slides and hits the poppet on the valve and dumps the air. If the hammer is resting on the poppet, the valve will remain open, and I'll show you that in a second. So there's 5 pumps of air in here, and then you'd load your pellet in there, close the breech, and away you go. It's got kind of a fun safety on the side here. It kind of works kind of strangely, but kind of show you what I mean here. So you can see that sorry, I'm off frame there. You can see that the trigger is engaged there, and then to get it, because the safety's on, because I have the safety on, so you can see that it's engaged. And so to release the safety, you pull it back again. And if you watch right there, I'll show you again here, okay? So we close it and we push it, all right? Okay, so we're in the fire mode right now. Little red flag because we're up. And so we put it into safe. And I don't know if you can see that little notch right there that caught on the safety. So that's the hammer inside the tube hitting the safety. Now the problem with this is the full weight of that hammer spring is pushing on the safety now. So you can't, if I was to force this up with a screwdriver or something, it would fire the gun because it's holding on that safety. So the way that they get around that is they print on the bottom, it says caulk hammer to release safety. So if you watch that little pin there on the end of the safety, when I caulk this, it releases it. And now you can move the safety up and down. So it's a pretty simple system. This has this has driven people crazy because a lot of people think that this is a flimsy safety and it's stupid and it doesn't work properly. And I'm sure in my mind there's better designs. I know they switched to one back here, kind of a tang safety for a while. And anyway, there's different renditions. This is an early gun, so it has an early safety, but a lot of people complained about this one. I'm fine because I don't really use the safety like I did for you guys, and every time I go to use it, I forget half the time because it's been so long since I used it before. But anyway, So it's off safe right now, and it's empty, of course. And then you would close the breech like that, or the bolt, and you could hear like that. It made my ears ring with 5 pumps. So it's got some jam. It's no joke. And like I said, it's a real testament to the quality of these and the simplicity that it has original seals. And I know that because I've looked. So they're either original or they're very early original, or very early replaced rather. So, to take these guys down is pretty straightforward. There's all screws, and then the later ones had roll pins, but there's some screws on the end of the housing. So it just comes down. And because this is an early pneumatic, these guys were meant to be like worked on, right? Because, like they're going to fail when you use them, parts wear out. There's a lot of moving parts here. And so there was an active support from this company, still is, to get available parts. And like if you buy the new one, I don't remember the number, the designation on it. If you buy the new one Crossman owns Benjamin now, but if you were to buy the new one now and hold it side by side, they look similar. There's nothing crazy difference about them. Like I said, they're still made out of brass to this day. And I think that's important because brass, to me, a lot of people, oh, brass, I don't know if I feel about that. Trust me, this is a rad little gun. For 4.5 pounds, I don't think you can beat it. I should mention real quick that this is walnut, American straight grained walnut. And, the grain isn't fantastic, but it's decent, and it's slender because it's an air rifle. And back in the day, things were made smaller. These were marketed towards kids, right? But it's definitely man-sized. I don't remember the length of pull, but it's not crazy short. And it's definitely man-size required to pump it. And then you can see this kind of charming different color here from the wear from your hand pumping it. I like to see stuff like that. The original, sorry, I don't think this is the original pump arm. I'm not sure because I think this gun is quite early, and the very first ones had screws, like slotted screws for the pump arm, and this one is pinned. So either this has been replaced. It almost looks like to me it has, but it's hard to say. There's no serial numbers, like I said, so you a good way to tell the older ones is, I believe they stopped doing, this is a 2-piece bolt handle. I believe they stopped doing that in 1951. So this is pre-1951. And there's slight differences in the stocks and stuff like that, but it's hard to tell. But after 1951, they made this kind of bent 1-piece bolt rather than this threaded 2-piece one. The 1-piece one is like a little bit beefier looking, whereas this kind of has a dainty appearance. And like the hammer, to caulk the hammer, it's quite stout. So like it would be nice if it was a little bit bigger, but then of course it would stick out. I think people are just used to hooking their finger in it and pulling it. And like very simple sights, and they're windage adjustable by drifting, but no elevation adjustment. And like I never really thought it needed it because like I think this was back in the day. People were just better at being simple marksmen, and so you just would, get used to the ranges of your pumps with this thing because it would take a certain amount of user knowledge to shoot this well at any sort of distance. But it's super flat shooting and extremely accurate because with that barrel soldered to the tube, it's a very nice straight affair with very little to go wrong with it, and so it's a nice accurate little platform. They make a peep sight that fits in this little slot here, and it was a factory ordered option. And you sometimes you'll see them, but they were often lost. And I actually recently found out that a company in the U.S. is making a reproduction, very a very decent copy of the original, and it's on my list of things to get. I think the next time I order some seals from that company for this air gun or another one, I'll put it on my list of things to get. Nothing wrong with these sights, but it's just kind of cool to have a little peep sight. It's adjustable for windage and elevation, just a simple eye disc. But anyway, I thought I'd show this to you guys. And oh yeah, like simple trigger, and it's actually like very well thought out inside. It's just kind of, it is a direct sear, but just very well made, nothing over the top, and single takedown screw. Like you undo that fella and then it just pops out of the stock. And a lot of times when you do, you can I don't know if you can make that out, but on the edge you can kind of see some black because it's protected. So usually you'll see all underneath where the receiver is here, underneath the stock, you'll see black because it's been protected from handling. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, they're in this condition or worse, where you'll get the brass blooming. Because as you get to heavy pumps, it's actually hard to hold it here when you pump it. Like, because when you start pumping it, you hold it here and pump like this. But then as it gets stout, you move to here naturally because it's a little bit more stable. This is a little bit far apart up until about, I would say it's fine to about 5 pumps. And then you switch to here for the last couple. And so you'll see a lot of wear on them right here. And I believe it's Sheridan, who was a competitor to these guys but came out later, had a rubber cover from the factory. They were also made out of brass. And they had a rubber cover from the factory. They're a little bit more expensive. Rubber cover to protect the finish from wearing. Because you'll see a lot of them with this nice kind of handprint there, which is charming in its own right. But anyway, I thought I would show you guys that this gun, like 70 plus years old, is still tight and still shooting with original seals. And my 14, almost 15-year-old is going to be having a blast with this, just like how many kids did before in the backyard later today with it. And then, like I said, I think I'm going to bring it to the range this Saturday and just fool around with it at 10 yards or so, and maybe 25. We'll see. And we'll see what it can do. It's not pellet fussy at all. It definitely likes higher quality pellets, like most of them do. But I've heard a lot of people get great luck with inexpensive pellets. And I've never really found that it's super pellet picky. I think it shoots higher quality pellets because they're more consistent. But it definitely is not the type of gun that shotgun patterns it. But if you're just shooting at pop cans, it doesn't really matter. But if you're going to use it as a hunter, which to me it's more than capable of, it's got some power, especially in 177. You know, I should touch on that because, like, if you're shooting a gun like this, a pneumatic with low pumps, like 3 or 4, and so like maybe you're getting to, I don't know, maybe 400 feet per second. In 22, that would be a very loopy curve, and so in 177, it gives you the option to stretch that a little bit farther for not as much work to put into it. So for a pump like this, 177 is pretty awesome. If I was going to hunt with it, 22 would be the way to go, and they're stout. They get up to, I think, 800 feet per second. Some of them, the Sheridans did anyway, I think. My memory's rusty on them, but for this guy, 177 is perfect because you can do some pretty good shooting with it. And like I've shot 30, 35 yards with it, but again, like I don't like to put 8 pumps in them, so I don't even really remember ever trying that too much. Like I've done it, and they got some jam, but to me it's just a fun little gun. This would be a cool gun, like I said, if you had a piece of property and, you know, barbecue some friends, and, you know, no, not barbecue your friends, a barbecue with some friends, and just to enjoy shooting it. I know when I was a kid, we would like I grew up with like Crossman 760s, right? Those kind of most of plastic stock ones, although the old ones did have wood, and they were a blast. And you'd take turns, like you'd shoot and your buddy would pump, and you'd shoot and your buddy would pump, and then you'd switch off, and you know, like you guys would tag team because they were so hard to pump when you were young, you know. And I think maybe kids were stronger back then. Anyway, I'm going on and on. I thought I would show this to you guys. That old air guns are super cool, and there's a lot of these you can find, and you do a little work to them, and you have a beautiful little plinker. But anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I'll check you guys in the next one, and keep your eye open for this guy at the range, probably this Saturday, just for fun. Thanks a lot.